Exciting news, everyone! Rowan Fortier featured my game, Glow Cubes. I'll link that video below, so definitely check that out. And technically, he beat me to posting a solve of today's puzzle, the cluster cube. I'll talk about how this cube moves in a moment, but first, I want to show a major glitch I addressed in my first solve. Over the course of many moves, errors accumulated in float coordinate values, so I couldn't get credit for the solve because the white center drifted so far out of position. You can see how it no longer lights up even when it's in the right spot. So I added a function that rounds each cubie's local coordinates to the nearest integers, and you can see the white center move now. From here, I was able to get credit for the solve. For the permanent fix, I added a method that makes this correction after every move. Now I'll move on to my second solve, which I use to make sure I fix the problem. The cluster cube has the same spinning movements as the classic puzzle cube, plus the cubies slide around each other as well, for an extra layer of challenge and intrigue. I'd also like to mention that I tweaked the sound effects to vary in pitch and volume to make them sound more natural, because my goal isn't just to explore the geometry of puzzles with exotic movements. I want to create the satisfaction of collecting and physically experiencing these puzzles. In the cluster cube, there are 25 cubies and an empty, filling 26 spaces. So, disregarding angles and only considering positions for the moment, there are 26 factorial ways of placing the blocks in the spaces. Except that the 3 blue, red, yellow corners are interchangeable. So we really have 26 ways of placing the first blocker empty, 25 ways of placing the next since we've used the previous space, 24 ways of placing the next, and so on, until we get to the identical corners whose permutations don't matter. That gives us 67 septillion combinations, over 1,000,000 times the 43 quintillion Rubik's combinations, before we even take the angles into account. For the angles, there are 24 possible orientations for each of the 25 cubies. So we multiply by 24 once for each cubie, or 24 to the 25th power in total, to get 2 novemdecillion. A lot of these are duplicates though, like one state will be the same as another but with the whole cube rotated. Given 24 orientations, there are 24 ways to make each cube state. So, we divide by the number of possible rotations for the final answer, 89 octodecillion. If you converted the entire mass of the known universe into $1,000 bills, this is about how many dollars you would have. But then, there'd be nothing to buy with that money, so it's a bit of a Midas touch, Faustian bargain kind of thing. Alright, that's the first 2 layers complete, except for one block that I use as a placeholder for the rest of the solve. Now it's time to start on the last layer. First, I'm fixing the rotations so that all the yellow sides are up, which turns out to be relatively simple. Then I'll rotate the cubies about the vertical axis, which I found to be less straightforward. It's harder to keep track of which ones I did, and which way each one needs to be rotated. Plus, it took me a lot more moves to rotate each one. At the end, the last layer becomes a slide puzzle. I noticed a mild glitch while editing this video. On this move, the yellow center in motion is not solved and should not be glowing. This was due to an erroneous check being performed at the start of the movement, which was easily resolved. With that, the cube is perfectly solved with absolutely no flaws. Okay, apparently I missed one when I was correcting the rotations. On the bright side, we get to see that unlike with the vanilla twisty cube, you can actually have a single cubie rotated wrong. And it was 90 degrees off as well, meaning that any orientation is possible. In cubing, this is known as parity. I thought I could fix it cleanly, but alas, I jumbled up the top in the process. So, I just have to resolve the top and we'll be good to go. Okay, now it's completely solved. Except apparently, you can have exactly 2 cubies swapped. Though in this case, I'm pretty sure that's just a result of having 3 identical blue, red, yellow corners. If you have 2 of the matching corners and a third piece mixed around, it looks the same as just having 2 of them swapped. Nevertheless, being able to rotate a single cubie and to swap a pair individually has interesting implications. It means that the entire number of combinations I calculated are valid, solvable cube states. Plus, if you were to break the cluster cube and reassemble the pieces randomly, you would be guaranteed to still have a solvable puzzle. There you have it, the first ever cluster cube solve that wasn't focused on debugging. During this solve, I used a lot of extra moves just to see what was going on. So I added a feature, activated by the right mouse button, that gives you an unobstructed view. You can also turn off the frame to get a clearer view that way. The earlier solve unlocked yet another one of my cubes, the Cluster Impossible. For this one, I went for the feel of a classic wooden puzzle, but enchanted with glowing magic. As with all bonus cubes, you can read about it on its bonus cube page. I was going to end the video here, but I forgot to show that the Cluster Impossible also has the extracted view feature. Plus, I did yet another overhaul of the sound design. Now the spinning sound is continuous as the cube slice moves, with its volume and pitch proportionate to the speed. I gave the Space and Einstein cubes a totally different sound, which has a distinctive tapering on and off effect. I also added a control for drag speed. Not like that. Click plus or minus, or use the scroll wheel to adjust how fast the mouse drags a slice. Now it's really slow, and now it's really fast. Thanks for sticking with me to the end, and please don't forget to check out Glow Cubes on Steam at the link below.